friends, I'm Golda Rose and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Golda Rose, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about my guide to getting an internship. Okay, let's get started. So before we get started, I just want to remind you guys to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you really like the video, go ahead and hit that notification bell because I do post videos every single week. So I titled this video Golda's Guide to Getting an Internship because it's just my personal guide. It by no means guarantees that you're going to get an internship, but it's really me taking some time to look back at my experiences and things that I wish I knew and kind of sharing those with you to just help through the process and really figuring out, what should I do to get an internship? So I hope that kind of helps you guys out. And then I am making some assumptions as we're going through the video. Some assumptions I'm making are that you're probably a second year student or someone who has taken some core courses in your major. Now, I personally have an engineering background. If you've watched some of my videos, they're mostly about engineering. So that's something that I'm gonna kind of hone in on, and I feel like a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about apply to a variety of different majors. So I'm not just going to be focused on engineering, but the examples I'm using are obviously engineering related. So I hope that kind of clears up some assumptions. And then another assumption I'm making is that you guys want to get an internship. So that's why you're watching this video. So I am located in Southern California, which is in the United States. So for those of you who are watching, I just wanted to define what an internship is here and how we kind of define it. I know that might vary in different countries, so I just want to kind of throw that out there. So an internship here is defined as usually a part-time student position, someone who is definitely more entry level, still in school. These can be paid or unpaid internships, and then your responsibilities are usually on the much smaller scale. You might have a project throughout your internship, and then these could also be summer internships or kind of just a continuous part-time employment within a company. Okay, so I would say that the most important part or the most important step of getting your internship is to have a good resume and cover letter and even a portfolio depending on your field. So I get some questions sometimes, well, should I have a resume and a cover letter or like only do the resume? I personally always like to do the resume and the cover letter. And then when I would go in for my interview, if I happen to, get an interview, then I would have my portfolio. Just so you guys know, I did post a video about my top 7 tips for interviews. So if you haven't already, go ahead and click that box up there to go ahead and check that video out. So I did post a community post on YouTube asking kind of what are your guys' questions about getting an internship? And one question that Daniela had was, should I fill out my resume? Should I only pull like the important things? And my advice for that is to pull the relevant information. So if you have had, for example, an engineering position or like an internship in the past, definitely include that. I always suggest to include relevant information. Now, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. When I was first looking at getting an internship, I was working on campus and it definitely wasn't in an engineering field. I was doing more admin, office kind of position. So I didn't have any engineering experience to put on my resume, but I did put that admin student employee position on my resume because it showed that I was working during school and I did have some work experience. I had worked on some smaller engineering projects, so I also included that as well. It really just depends on the position that you're applying to. And that's one thing I want to point out is as you're applying for positions, be sure that you're customizing your resume to fit those positions. Now, there are tons of resources on, online and hopefully at your university. I know that at Cal State Fullerton, we had a career center and we had some like resume resources that we could use. So I would encourage you guys to look into that because formatting your resume is really important. That's the first thing that, companies are looking at, and they're kind of like a snapshot of you. I would definitely look into, asking your professors or even your peers for some help. If your school does offer, some career resources, I would definitely encourage you to look into that as well. And then of course, just looking online. I'll leave a link in the description box of some examples that I think are like good resumes, specifically just more like general resumes. And then I'll also try and look for an engineering resume just that I think is a kind of good template to use for more entry level, looking for like an internship kind of positions. One thing I would also note is that as you're looking at these templates, do not copy them verbatim. I guarantee you a lot of people are using Google and other resources to really pull from templates, and it's the worst thing to see, you know, two resumes look pretty much identical. Like yes, your name has changed and things like that, but when you're pulling like your objective and certain like keywords from it, really try and customize it and make it your own. Another piece of advice is to update your resume for every company that you're applying to. Now, I'll go into more of the application process a little bit later in the video, but I just want to talk about resumes and cover letters right now. So I'll give you guys an example of something I saw when looking for an intern. So this past summer, I was able to get an intern at my work, and so I was able to look through a whole bunch of resumes. Now, when I was looking at those resumes, there were a few things that caught my attention and ultimately led to me choosing the person that I did. But one mistake that I saw that automatically threw someone out, in my opinion, was the fact that they hadn't changed what the company was. So usually in your statement or like your objective, you'll have, I'm an entry-level engineer looking for a position with X company. On this person's resume, it said, insert name of company. And I automatically thought, well, you're not interested enough in this company. You're not passionate enough to check your resume or maybe even detail oriented. It was just all these things that kept coming up. I was like, wow, like they're just kind of sending their resume out to whoever. I think it's really important to customize your resume and customize your cover letter based on the position and company that you're applying to. Again, that will take a little bit of work, but when you're going through the process and you're applying, it's worth it to really hone in on the companies that you're interested in and show an effort. Because at the end of the day, if you're really interested in getting a position within this company, specifically an internship, you want to show that you're interested, and not having the company's name is obviously not going to show that you're interested. So that's just my piece of advice in terms of formatting your resume and those little details to look out for. Now, in terms of what to put in your cover letter, again, I'll look for some templates online that I feel like do a good job of, you know, covering, no pun intended, that information in terms of a good kind of base model to offer your cover letter. Now, when I was in school, my cover letter was about 1 page, and my resume in the beginning was only 1 page, but as I started getting different internships, that became 2 pages. I feel like 1 page for a cover letter is good, and then for your resume, when you start getting more experience and you start getting some internships or projects under your belt, there's no reason why your resume can't be 2 pages long. If you're someone who, again, I'll use an engineering example. If you're an engineering student who, you know, worked at GameStop, for instance, but you've also worked at different engineering companies, I would probably remove the GameStop position just because that's not really applicable. During your interview, you can definitely touch on the fact that, you know, let's say you work 2 jobs and you were working at GameStop and this other company while being in school full-time. That's something to show, hey, look, I have time management skills. I worked these 2 jobs and I was going to school full-time. And that's exactly what I had done. I was working at an engineering company, I was working on campus, and I was going to school full-time. So I think it's important that, you know, while you might not include all of the like little tiny details or jobs that didn't really apply to the position you're looking into, you can always talk about those during your interview process. So I kind of want to talk a little bit more about resumes and cover letters, because I feel like as I'm thinking about all the things that go into a resume, I'm thinking of like new things that I want to talk to you guys about. And so I feel like there's kind of a progression as you're going through your, you know, academic experience or going through academia and really starting to look into getting those positions or internships while you're in school. Usually I feel like you start out not really having much engineering experience, and that's why you want to get an internship, is to really see, well, am I interested in this industry like I think I am? Do I want to pursue a career in this field, or should I look into something else? Getting an internship in your field has so many benefits in the future, so I'll kind of get into those points a little bit later. In terms of your resume, as you're building your resume and as you're having different internships or positions or projects, continue to update your resume as you do that. I know usually for an engineering resume, you'll have your objective or your statement, and then you'll have maybe your project listed, some classes that you've kind of done, and then you'll go more into the positions that you've held. So that's personally how I structure my resume. And then of course having your education. So usually it is your name at the top, your statement or your objective, why you're applying to this company, what you're interested in, what's the position. You'll have your education, you know, where did you go to high school? What was your GPA? In college, you can put your major, when you started, when your estimated end date is. Sometimes it's also good to put your GPA. Now, for the GPA, I'll kind of touch on that a little later in the video. There's, I feel like, a lot to cover in terms of resumes, internships, and school. So I'll get to that a little bit later. You can include your GPA if you feel comfortable. Now, it is totally up to you. I personally did not include my GPA on my resume. That's something to think about, and that's totally your preference, is those little details that you're like, you know what, I'm not really comfortable putting my GPA, or I'm not really comfortable putting when I started because I've been in school so long. That is totally up to you. They'll probably ask you that during your interview. You just have to be confident in your response to that and reasons why. Overall, I just feel like regardless of what you don't include in your resume, just be able to talk about it and feel confident in your decisions. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. You're the one applying for this position. And it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, whether or not you put your GPA or whether or not you spent 6 years in college. Like, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so I know I've kind of talked a lot about resumes and how to structure them. Again, I will try and look for some templates online to include in the description box below, so be sure to check that out. Now, going into your cover letter, I did get some questions. Should I include a cover letter? What goes in my cover letter? A cover letter is kind of a, hi, this is me, outside of your resume. It just shows a little glimpse into your writing skills and how you can kind of introduce yourself outside of your resume. That's why I personally think having a cover letter is really good, because you can kind of say, hey, look, not hey, look, you wouldn't start it off like that. You usually start it off by like, to whom it may concern, the position that you're interested within the company. So you can introduce yourself, say what your major is, and certain things like that. Again, I will look for a template online to try and show you guys. It's been a while since I've had to do one. So I think it's really good because, one, it shows that you're willing to put in a little bit effort during the application process. And it also gives the reviewers some insight into who you are. So if you guys have any additional questions about cover letters, go ahead and comment down below. I'll try and get back to you with some good answers as soon as I can. Okay. So let's move on to like some resources that you can use, or the application process. So I know for me personally, at Kelsey Fullerton, we had like a career center, and within that there were different job postings online. That's actually how I got my first internship. So I had been applying for a number of reasons, and I finally, heard back from a place, got an interview, and then ended up accepting that internship. That's just one resource that I use. There are obviously company websites that you can go look at. You can reach out to professors or maybe some peers who also might already have an internship. You can use resources like LinkedIn and other official platforms where recruiters will be posting, or companies will be posting, some part-time positions or internship opportunities. Depending on if you're involved with, different honor societies at your university or school, they also offer different resources in terms of like job listings and internship opportunities. So I'd highly encourage you to just kind of look into those. Those are just a few that I personally use. So, and your university or your school might have some other resources that you can take advantage of. One thing I just want to warn you guys about is that I know there are some sites, I won't name names, but there are sites that post some, suspicious job postings. And my word of advice for you guys is, if an entry-level position seems a little too good to be true, it probably is. I know when I was looking, I would get these like messages about, oh, we'll offer you this large sum of money to take this position part-time, and it was just like, that's a little weird. So obviously just kind of research, ask around, don't go and take things that, this seems a little weird, might be too good to be true opportunities. And, if it ends up working out for you, that's great. But just some word of advice for when you're kind of new, looking at more entry-level positions and internships. Another piece of advice is to kind of be cautious about what you're posting on social media. I know it sounds funny, but if you wouldn't want your grandma to see it, then you definitely don't want a possible future employer to see it. So if that means keeping your Instagram or other platforms on private, go ahead and do that. I know personally, like from a person wanting to hire someone or wanting to have an intern, I looked at people's LinkedIn profiles because I didn't really care if they saw like, oh, so-and-so is looking at your profile. Now LinkedIn, I guess, is a form of social media. I wasn't going and looking at their Instagram profiles, but just having a presence on LinkedIn or other kind of career-focused platforms, I think goes to show that, you know, you're a professional, you're a real person. I can kind of see hopefully what you look like. I can just kind of see, does your resume match your LinkedIn profile? So keeping that updated and keeping, you know, a professional presence on social media and other platforms like that, I think is important. Now, I do want to apologize because it is a very overcast day and now the clouds are taking away my sun. So, well, we're just gonna have to work with it. Hopefully it doesn't get too dark. I've tried to find the right time of day to record this, but we'll just have to see. Another thing that I like to tell people, and something I did, was practice for your interviews. I know there are some, you know, mock interviews that you can participate in. At least at Cal State Fullerton, they offered that. I personally never did that. I like to practice by myself and just kind of think about it. I never wanted to come up with a script because I feel like in the moment, you want to be organic, and while you can have your main points that you want to pull from, like, yes, I worked at X company, these are my job responsibilities, or this is a project I worked on in school. While you want to have those main points, personally for me, I didn't like to script it because if I were to deviate from that, it would like completely throw me off. But as long as you're practicing for your interview, again, I did post my top 7 interview tips, so go check that video out if you want some more help. Another question that Daniela had posted and I've gotten before is talking about GPA. Does your GPA matter? What about companies like Northrop or Lockheed that post you have to have a minimum of a 3.0 GPA? I personally know a lot of people who did not have a 3.0 GPA, but who ended up getting internships with them and who ended up getting positions with them. I don't think that one aspect of a job description should stop you from applying for a position that you're genuinely interested in. I would just encourage everyone to apply to, you know, as many positions, but being thoughtful about the positions you're applying to. Keep track of what you're applying to so that when you get a call, hey, we're blah, 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 we got your resume, and you're there like, oh, I did not know I applied. So you never want to be kind of caught off guard in that respect. I also don't advise you to just apply to everything and not be thoughtful with it. Because as you're doing that and you're genuinely like not really interested in working for that company, then if you hear back from them, you're like, oh shoot, well, I don't want to do that. You don't want to come off disrespectful or I guess negatively to other companies. While I say apply thoughtfully. So hopefully you guys understand that, because I feel like it kind of goes back to formatting your resume and your cover letter for each position. Now, if you have a generic cover letter and you're just sending that out, or you have a generic resume and you're just sending that out, I feel like the chances, and this is just my opinion, I feel like the chances of you really hearing back from that place is very slim because it's not customized. Can you, I mean, of course you can definitely hear back if it's a generic resume. I'm not saying that you can't, but when you're going against hundreds or maybe even thousands of resumes, you want to stand out and you really want to have a good first impression. When you're applying to companies like Lockheed and Northrop, it's competitive, and that's just the truth of the matter. So however you can stand out, I just wouldn't tell you don't apply because your GPA doesn't match it. I feel like your GPA doesn't define you, and I hope that more companies start to realize that. And my GPA now doesn't even matter, to be honest. Once you get your experience and once you start really working and doing all of that, there are ways to get around your GPA being low. So Daniela, if you're worried about your GPA, don't worry about it. I would just encourage everyone to continue to apply, and you never know, someone could read your cover letter and say, you know what, I think he or she would be a great fit here. And so that's just something to think about. Again, it's subjective. It depends on the company. It depends on a multitude of things. But I would just encourage you guys to try, because I have heard of my friends get into really good companies without having a crazy GPA. So again, don't worry about it. Just try. I feel like at the end of the day, if you don't try, you're going to be stuck wondering, well, could I have gotten there? And if you don't apply and you don't even try, then you'll never know. And honestly, the worst thing you can hear back is nothing, or you can hear back no. And the greatest thing is to get an interview. So go ahead and try it. I don't see an issue with it. I just want to pop in here and say that I'm not saying that GPA is not important. It is important, and the higher your GPA, the more options you will have typically. But you can still be successful with a lower GPA. So just wanted to hop in here and say that so I don't get comments saying how GPA is important, but that's just my personal opinion. Of course, you want to have a good GPA, but it's not going to stop you from getting a job. So yeah, back to the video. Another question we had was whether or not to apply to industries where you might not be doing that specific field. So for example, a mechanical engineer trying to go into aerospace industry. That is my personal story. So at Cal State Fullerton, they didn't offer an aerospace program. They offered aerospace courses and like electives, but they didn't have that degree program, which is totally fine because I feel like that's definitely more niched, however you want to say it. So for me, I was always interested in defense. I was always interested in aerospace, and that's what I wanted to do. But when I was looking at positions and applying, I did worry, like, well, if I'm not an aerospace engineer, will they still take me? I applied. I actually, the last job that I had before I graduated, the last internship I had, was at an aerospace company. And I was a design engineer part-time with them, and I got the job. So I don't think it really matters. I mean, you want to have an understanding of what you'll be doing. And if that's software if you're using software, you're using CAD software, let's say to design, you obviously want to understand that software if that's a position you're applying for. If you're applying for, like, let's say a flight analysis intern, you kind of want to have an idea. Of course, there will be like on-the-job training, but you kind of want to have an idea of what your exact roles and responsibilities are, and if you can do those. So keep in mind, I mean, there's so many factors that go into internships. You'll get a lot of training. So don't worry about the little details. When you're looking at a position description, if you check off, a good chunk of those requirements, there's no reason why you can't apply. Because one, you can learn, and that's something to show and talk about during your interview. I can learn it. I'm, doing that in school. Two, you're interested, like you're passionate about that field. So when I was studying mechanical engineering, I was passionate about aerospace. I wanted to do that. So when I would go into my internships or like go into the interviews, I would say that, like, this is something I'm passionate about. This is really something that I could see a career doing, and I want to get that kind of knowledge and kind of experience under my belt. So that's one way that you can really market if you're an ME or you're an EE who wants to do something else. So hopefully that kind of answers whether or not you should even apply depending on your industry and what you're interested in. You won't really know until you go and you get that experience, but I definitely, again, don't discourage yourself or don't stop yourself from applying to positions even if they aren't exactly in your field of study. So the cool thing about engineering is that there's so many different fields and so many positions that you can go into regardless of what you're studying. So that's just something to think about. Again, just my personal opinion and things that I personally have experienced. Like, I was that mechanical engineer who ended up working in an aerospace company. I was that mechanical engineer whose first position out of school was titled an aerospace engineer. It's really subjective, and it depends on your experience and what you're willing to do and what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. I feel like there's so many things that go into really looking at what you want to do in the future. So, and you can always learn. There's nothing wrong with that. So going into some things that I feel like companies look for when going through interns and looking through their resumes and interviewing people is, are you someone who, your resume says you are? Have you really gone through school? Like, when you're going through the interview, they're going to ask you questions. And so if they can verify certain things of that and really establish, like, oh yeah, this is someone who would really fit into our company. Is this someone who's passionate about doing what we do as a company? Typically, if an internship is paid for, this company is investing in you. They don't want to just invest in anyone. They want to invest in someone who enjoys working with them, who enjoys the industry. There's certain factors like that. Now, if your experience or your internship is unpaid, there are a few different things. I mean, you're getting the experience working there. So it's not necessarily that they're putting in like a monetary investment, but the people and the employees there are investing their time into training you and teaching you and having you work with them. So either way, that company is looking for, should we invest in this person? Should we bring them onto our team? And whether it be like full-time or part-time or full-time over the summer, regardless of what it is, they really want to know, will you be a good fit? Is this something that you're interested in? And will we be a good fit for you? So it's a, two-way relationship between you and the company that you're applying to. Okay, and if I haven't already sold you on why you should get an internship, here's some reasons why I feel like internships are really good as you're going through school. One, it's a resume builder. The more you're kind of looking into the industry and actually applying those skills that you're learning in class, just adds to your resume when you're finally going for that, career position once you graduate. I am going to be making a video about how to get a job before you graduate. That's my personal experience, and I'm just going to walk you guys through the steps, and also walk you guys through the steps of what to do if you've already graduated and want to get a job. Just from my personal experience, of course. So I am working on that video, just so you guys know. I wanted to give you guys a heads up. So an internship really builds your resume. Another thing that it does, I know for engineering internships specifically, you typically make more than, minimum wage. So that job you have, let's say at GameStop or whatever, or even on campus, let's say you're making minimum wage there. When you go and get a paid, engineering internship, they typically offer you a pretty good hourly rate because you are part-time. So even though you're not getting like those benefits of a full-time employee, you're getting, paid usually a little bit more, which is nice. So that's why I also encourage it. Deciding whether or not you do an unpaid or a paid internship is totally up to the person. If it's a company you really want to work at, but like it's unpaid, if that's what you want to do, go for it. If you can financially be okay doing that, that's fine. I personally tried to stick with paid internships because I wanted to make that money while in school and get the experience at the same time. But again, it is totally a personal decision, so it's up to you to make that decision. That's just my personal experience. Again, so we got the resume builder, we have the, usually making a little bit more money. And another thing is that it gives you an idea of if you really want to work in that industry. You could have this whole, kind of idea in your head of what it would be like working in X industry, and then you get there and you're like, wait, I don't want to do this. And so that's totally fine. That's what internships I feel like are all about, is really, one, getting the experience, and then really deciding where you want to go and how to navigate your career post-grad. So that's something to think about. And then another thing, usually as you're working as an intern, keep in mind, like I said, they're investing in you. There is the possibility of getting postgraduate employment afterwards. So once you graduate, you could be given a position there because you've been working as an intern. That was one thing that the other company I was working for as an intern had offered me. Again, they're investing, you're investing, and you never want to burn bridges with that. So when you're going through the process and you're working as an intern, or you're reaching out to different recruiters or companies and realizing, oh, this is something I want to do, just keep in mind there is that, future of you working for them. And that, I think, is the best thing to have, is to have those options and to have those opportunities really to grow as an engineer or grow as a new employee. So that wraps up today's video. I hope I answered majority of your questions about how to get an internship, and I hope this guide to getting an internship really helped you. If you guys have any additional questions or anything that you kind of want me to clarify, please leave a comment down below. And then again, just another reminder to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And then if you really, really like the video, go ahead and hit that notification bell, because I do post videos every single week. Again, sorry for the lighting. I don't know what it's doing. Southern California is weird, but I'll see you guys next week.